welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. We're going to talk a little bit today about the fall of Rome and the national divorce and the fact that the USSR broke up with no civil war, according to some people. History is a hilarious thing because people often just kind of miss huge swaths of it. There's a lot of talk right now about a national divorce, a national breakup. This idea that the United States should become many different countries so that we all don't have to deal with each other anymore. And it's really funny because most of the don't want to deal with other people involves the problem of people telling you what to do or wanting to control your life. It's not about leaving people alone. So I think that this whole national divorce conversation is generally wrong. Just generally wrong because it comes from the wrong perspective. You know, you have this group of people who want to enforce some sort of Christian nationalist state. You have this group of people who want to enforce some sort of free healthcare, slavery, socialist state. You've got these people over here who want this, and then people who want that, and you know, we don't want any capitalism, we don't want any money, we want UBI. But it's all control over other people, not leave me alone to do my thing. And the whole point of how our country was founded was to protect people's individual rights to go do their own thing. Now, we had a long period of time where we didn't do a very good job of that. It's been growing. Individual liberty, honestly, has been growing in society almost as fast as the inability to get out of society. You know, over my lifetime, freedoms and liberties have increased dramatically. You know, this includes the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, not the Fourth Amendment, because that's an area where the government has been swinging the balance in the favor of authoritarianism. You know, you can swing these things. It's a constant battle. There's always a thing going on. But we have often more rights than we used to. It's not always that way, and there's always a fight against it. Removing rights and removing the ability to make your own choices is something that is constantly at the forefront of politics. That is what most politics is about, is trying to get rid of your liberty. Shut people down, tell them what they have to do, tell them what they aren't allowed to do. That is what is all about. So it's constant battle, but we've been doing a pretty good job, you know. Really, we have. So this national divorce thing is funny. Anyway, this one dude comes out with, you know, I don't know why a national divorce would end in civil war. It doesn't have to end in civil war. Look, the USSR broke up and there was no civil war. Okay, one thing to remember is that the USSR was not a nation. The USSR was a empire run by Russia that had 15 republics, theoretical republics in it, 15 nations in it. It's more like 27 nations because some of the nations weren't really nations and some of the nations have broken up and so on and so forth. But when the USSR dissolved, there was actually quite a lot of conflict. There has not been peace in all of the 15 former Soviet republics, at all of them together, at any point in time since the breakup of the USSR. Period. And then, of course, you have the Warsaw Pact, which is the Warsaw Pact nations, which is the USSR plus some things like Poland and Albania. Albania left when the Czech invasion happened in 1968, but it was a Warsaw Pact. Yugoslavia was never a Warsaw Pact, but you had a lot of countries like that were in the Soviet sphere of influence. So when you say Soviet, you know, a lot of people don't even know what they mean by that. So what is it that broke up completely peacefully with no civil war? Because there's been strife and war and violence the entire time. That's going on, 40-something years now? Never a day of total peace. So be careful what you wish for. Be careful how you use history to justify it. There, of course, this is necessary, this national divorce, because everyone knows about the fall of Rome. And the U.S. is obviously in the later stages of the Roman Empire and is about to fall. If you actually know anything about Roman history, we're still in the late stages of the Republic phase, okay? We have yet to hit the height of our power and the dominance and the glory of empire. Just to be clear, you're 500 years early or late or whatever. You're off by 500 years, okay? Think about this not as 4th century, 5th century, 6th century Rome, the fall. Think of this as 2nd century BC, maybe. Yeah, maybe 3rd century BC. We're here, not here. Okay, we are, relatively speaking, at the potentially later stages of republic, where the republican form, the republican idea, is shifting to an imperial idea. You can certainly see that in society. There's a lot of authority, state, community, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of social expectations and not a lot of individual expectations right now. What the individual has right now to a lot of people is a debt to society, or what they owe society, or some form of society, social primacy of society or government or authority. And that is where the empire comes in. But just realize this isn't the fall. This is a shift that we're potentially going through. There's always a problem with this is just like Rome, because we're not just like Rome. But insofar as there are parallels, remember that we're at the late Republican stage. We're not even in the imperial stage, let alone fall of empire. It's a really important thing I think you should remember, especially if you're going to talk about these history things this way. The United States is growing. We're still growing. Okay, we've pretty much settled on the borders of the states and stuff, but we are adding dependencies, functional dependencies. We aren't making them overtly political, and I don't know why, but we aren't. But this isn't the fall of empire. This isn't the doom. This isn't the end. This is probably the beginning. And if we're halfway decent, because we've come at this with a better structure, the Roman Republic was not a good structure. They never advanced freedom and liberty to more of the population. They restricted it from the population. They had wars over this, like the Social War. And they did expand citizenship to include more people as they got more territory, but they never expanded it in the sense that they opened up new classes of people, like women, for example. Just as the most basic, obvious one, women didn't vote in Rome. Lots of people didn't vote in Rome. We're pretty open. We've done a really good job of making a better basis and growing that basis. So there's no need for us to actually fall the way Rome did. We could probably actually escape the pattern completely if we're halfway intelligent. We're not exactly parallel to Rome that way, among other ways, technologically, geographically. We are in a completely different space. The United States is basically a continent-spanning, territorially secure space. We're not particularly worried about being invaded, okay? The news media will tell you all about the drug runners and everything, and there's always something to worry about, and the world is always going to end in the cusp of the fall of America, whatever. We've been doing that since 1789, arguably since 1775, but we haven't been around long enough for the fall of Rome, That's going back to the 1775 or even 1684. Depending on how you want to look at things, you could say that 1684 was the foundation of what became the American Republic. You know, kind of like the King's era of Rome, pre-Roman Rome. You know, you could argue 1775 when we first started fighting, actual physical violence. You could say 1776 with the Declaration. You can say 1789 with the Constitution. Probably in 1,000 years, historians are going to point to something like 1775 and 1684 as the defining moments. You know, the King's Age, quote unquote, and the Republic Age. And then sometimes coming up soon, if we follow that pattern, we're going to hit the Imperial Age. There's been attempts in several of our last political cycles, and this is from both sides, to become a less than Republican, less democratically Republican state. Right now, the ascendancy of that is on the left. The left wants to, broadly speaking, outlaw the opposing party. Most of them are Democrats, and they want to literally outlaw being Republican. Being a Republican is an act of domestic terror to far too many of them. So that's an imperial type of move. That's a move to this single party empire type state where the elections stop mattering and so on. Local governments are local, but the imperial machinery of state is separated from that and does its own thing. We've already got that. The establishment state, deep state, secret state, whatever you want to call it, the establishment state already operates in a kind of an imperial fashion. So we're moving that direction, but we could escape it. We could do something different because we have a foundation, a boundary of powers for government that can overcome this. So that got a little long and weird and distracted. But anyway, if you're comparing us to the fall of Rome, please read some Roman history, read some American history, and consider that maybe we're looking at more like the end of the Republic and the ascendancy of empire, which was really pretty awesome for Rome for several centuries. So could be a good thing. And if you think that the USSR broke up in a peaceful fashion, yeah, so history. Stay sideways.